Liquor Talk, another brand new episode coming right here, right now, live on all platforms, whether it's the MBG Podcast Network, the Pod Match Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. We are here, ladies and gentlemen. So go ahead and take a shot with your boy. And Joe, help me welcome today's guest, podcasting out of Atlanta, Georgia. She is the host of Mom's True Tea. It's Kendall. She's from Atlanta by way of Florida. How you doing today, Kendall?
I'm good. I'm good. I ain't got no liquor, but I got me some wine. Probably poured a little too heavy.
Hey,
So
that ain't no problem. Hey, that works. That works perfectly. Wine, liquor, beer, whatever it is, get your drink on, cause this is that
I
episode.
know that's right. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes, let's go. Let's go. Let's get right into it. Why don't you tell the people about your platform, Mom's True Tea?
Yeah, my platform is Mom's True Tea, where I spill the true tea about motherhood, not that warm and fluffy, fuzzy, BS type of stuff. Can I curse?
Yes, you can curse.
Okay, not that bullshit. I talk about the taboo topics about parenting that people don't want to discuss authentically and unfiltered. So that's the basis of my platform.
So, what is the most common one, the most common taboo topic when it comes to motherhood, the most common myth you get and you hear all the time, and you're like, if y'all don't shut the fuck up?
That everybody loves motherhood, that it's this amazing, joyous experience, and it's not. And when I hear all the warm and fuzzies, I just want to slap the hell out of them because I'm just like, oh, you're talking from a perspective of having a baby, a toddler, maybe 5 to 10. But my platform is geared towards parents that have adult children. I have a 29-year-old and a 34-year-old. So it's a different game. It's a different game. So when I get those people in my comments like, oh, kids' brains are not developed, I'm like, God damn, if their brains are not developed after the age of 20 plus years old, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's a problem on you, but at some point, I understand we gotta let the kids go, right? At some point, you just gotta let them go and trust that they can make the right decisions for themselves.
That's the journey. That's the hope.
But the way you sound, that's not necessarily the case.
It's not necessarily the case. People think that when your child turns 18, they're going to be ready to go. They're going to be out and ready for this world. And I still have to mother my adult sons.
Mm.
When I would rather just be hands off and be a consultant. Like you come to me when it's absolutely necessary, when you have exhausted all of your means to try to find the answer to whatever your question is or solve your problem on your own. Let me be the last resort. And sometimes that's not the case just because your kid is like 25, 26, 30, 40, whatever.
Mm. Wow. Well, I guess motherhood is like a lifetime contract. Did you realize you were signing up for that when you had your kids, or
I did
what did you
not.
think?
I did not. I did not. First of all, I was a teenage mom with my older son, and then I got married years later and had my younger son. Motherhood is a full-time job. You don't get any days off, no PTO, no sick time, no benefits in a lot of cases, and it is a full-time, long-term job that is never ending. So, yeah,
Wow. Hey, look, you literally about to make me pick up the phone, and call my mom, tell her I
y-
appreciate it, but
you better.
Mom, if you listen to this, I know you are. I just want you to know. I know it ain't Mother's Day yet, but damn it, I appreciate you.
Hey, mama.
I know me and my mom done butt heads. But hey, it is what it
Yeah,
is. So how do
yeah.
you do? So how do you deal with that when you hear your adult kids having resentment towards you?
Um, I will only say my younger son has resentment towards me because I divorced his father and I moved on with my life and I'm in an amazing marriage. But at the same time, I don't care about his resentment, to be completely honest. Like, I removed myself from a toxic, abusive relationship, and he should understand that now that he's a man, that I did that not only to benefit myself, but also to benefit him and his brother, because when you're in a toxic, abusive relationship, that bleeds onto your children. And that's something that I did not want to happen. Now, my older son and I, we have an amazing relationship. He honors me, he respects me, he knows the sacrifices that I've made. He knows that I have been emotionally supportive for them, financially supportive for them. I have been spiritually supportive to them, and supportive to them in every sense of the word. So when it comes to resentment, I don't bother myself with that anymore. I used to feel heartbroken and hurt that my son, I felt like he had some resentment or contention for me because I had moved on and I was happily married. But at this big age of 52, his resentment, if he hasn't grown out of it, that's on him. That's no longer on me.
I completely understand, and I would say give it time because it's like, hey, it's like I had a little resentment towards my mom, but guess what? I grew out of it, and then we talked about it, and
Mm-hmm.
what kind of helped me with the resentment for her is she kind of took accountability for her
Yeah.
actions. I was like, you know what? Okay,
Yeah.
I now understand. So
Yeah, but what if
again,
she hadn't? What if she hadn't? Like, how do we move past that? Why is it that us moving forward, you have to always have accountability from someone else? I've taken accountability as well with my son. And that accountability was again removing myself from that toxic marriage and making sure that I protected him and his brother from any fallout to the best of my ability. So
mm,
anything that I needed to be accountable for, I have sat down with both of them and been accountable for whatever it is. But what I think people want to do is sometimes you don't want, I hear that all the time. You need to be accountable. You need to be accountable from the people that come in my comments in the younger generation. But I'm like, accountable for what? Because a lot of times I feel like y'all don't just want us to be accountable. You want us to take blame for something, even if the narrative is not true.
ooh, that's deep right there. But it sounds like me and your son. It sounds like we're in opposite situations because personally, I wanted my mom to leave the situation, her first
Hmm.
situation, and it sounded like your son wanted you to stay and work it out. So I would
Well,
hope
I
that
did try to work it out. I did try to work it out initially, but when you have someone that's verbally abusive and disrespecting you, because so am I, I'm not going to stay in a relationship with someone
you
that doesn't
shouldn't.
value me as a woman. And
Hmm.
then my son grows up to treat me the same way, which is what has happened anyway. So I went from one abusive relationship with my ex-husband to now an abusive relationship with my son.
Oh damn! I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. That is messed up.
Yeah, people don't want to talk about that.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope that your son one day he comes around and just takes accountability for his own actions and not put all the blame on you. It's
Hmm.
like because I've had
Yeah.
to do it myself, and sometimes that's some things we gotta take accountability for on our end, and then some
Yeah.
things over time we just gotta let time heal wounds.
Absolutely. Your healing shouldn't be contingent upon somebody else's accountability. You know what I'm saying? I come from an abusive home as well. My mother was abusive. What you guys would think is abusive based on how I was chastised. I'm not holding my mother or making her feel like she has to apologize for every single solitary thing. I healed from that a long time ago because I gave her grace. And I think sometimes that's the problem as well. There's no
Mm.
grace.
So, ooh, that's a good one. So how do we know when it's time to give grace? Because sometimes I've found over the years, you give people grace, but they will abuse that grace.
I agree. I totally agree. And I can say that about my son. So I'm always going to target it back to him because he and I are estranged, right? I have given my son grace, grace after he's called me a bitch, grace after he said fuck you, grace after he's stolen, grace after he's threatened, grace. I've given him continuous grace over and over and over again, but that grace ran out 2 years ago. So I had to
Mm.
remove myself and become estranged. I know the young kids, they want to brag about going no contact with their parent, but I'm actually the one with the scissors.
As you should, and and that's for any parents. Like if your relationship with your kid is not where it should be, and it's not
Hmm.
benefiting to both of you, hey, you gotta cut it loose. But it's like if they come back around and you can
Hmm.
see the change. I
Hmm.
mean, I hope you still leave that door open if he
Well, you just
shows
said
the change.
something. But you just said something. That's, because people can apologize, but apologies come with change behavior.
Hmm.
So when I see that change, when I'm ready to give him that access again. And it will be on my terms, not on his, not because he apologized. I need to see his changed behavior, not just with me, just in general. I don't want him to change for me because I think that's the problem. A lot of times people want the world to change for them, but they're not willing to make the changes for themselves. So
Mm.
I want him to make the change for himself, not so much for me, not so much to amend our relationship, but I want him to change for himself, for his own health, his own healing. And so he can be a better person for the woman that comes in his life, or who he decides to marry, or for his child, because he has a 7-year-old child.
Mm. Agreed. Well said. Now, I know that's a powerful way to start the first 10 minutes of the episode, but hey, I'm here for it. But
Let's go.
get back to your platform. What inspired you to decide you want to start a podcast and to share your story? Because what I find is a lot of people, they have amazing stories, but none of them want to share it. So what inspired you to share your story in a podcast form?
So to be honest, I had this podcast in my notes 9 years ago, and I did not pull the trigger. Number one, I didn't know where to start. Number two, I didn't know if the world was ready to have these conversations. And just by the people that I trigger by my conversations, I can tell they're not ready to have these conversations. But also, I can tell there are a lot of moms that have been suffering in silence, and hence why they feel like they're now seen and they're now heard and they're now supported. And unfortunately, not alone. I get communications from people, when I say all over the world, that's no cap. I get messages from people in Africa, Kenya, South Africa, Ireland, UK, Canada, all over the world, with moms that are saying, thank you for this platform because I felt like I was alone. And I felt like I was alone. But that is why I decided to go ahead and start speaking on my experiences as a woman and as a mother. I did not realize that so many people or so many moms were having the same experience. Of course, mine is later in the game, but to know that there are thousands of women that are having the same experience, and it's very unnerving to me at the same time. But that was the main purpose as to why I started this platform. So women wouldn't have to suffer in silence anymore. If I tell my story, then they're going to feel comfortable telling their story, or at least they can feel like, damn, I'm not alone in this. I'm not crazy. So that was the main purpose behind it.
Yes, that's real. Isn't it like recharging and like give you like a rush to hear from people in other countries? Because I've heard from people in other countries as well, and I'm like, wow, I
Yeah.
did places I would have never guessed are listening. They are listening and
Yeah.
they are tuning in.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's humbling as well. You know what I'm saying? I always ask the Most High to make me an answer. I never do this for show or just because I want any notoriety or the attention. I really feel like it's purpose driven and I can see the purpose behind it. So of course, when I see messages and people say, I'm in Kenya, by the way, or they bought my book that I just wrote in at launch last week. I'm like, wow, like this is unbelievable. So I'm very humbled and I'm very thankful as well.
Yes, agreed. Congratulations on your book launch, by the way.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
know that's hard work to put out a book and then to put out a podcast because I know a lot of people they write stuff but they never put it out, and then they'll let
Yeah.
somebody like me read it. And I'm like, damn, this is really good. Like, why have you put
Yeah.
this out?
Yeah. I have been writing this book for quite some time. As a matter of fact, it's called Reclaiming Your Identity. Um, it's a mom's guide to empowerment, boundaries, and peace amid estrangement. And I have been writing the book, and life happens and you take a back seat, and then something just prompted me to get back to it and go ahead and finish it. It's a quick read because I know my attention span is short, so I try to keep that in mind for some readers. And yeah, I just launched on the 25th, and I'm very thankful.
That's what's up. So, how does one like work on what's the major thing that one has to do to reclaim their identity? Because I find that a lot of people go
Ooh.
through identity crisis, whether it's people that are in relationships where it's like
Oh
one
yeah.
sided, where they barely have a say, or people have or people get out their parents' shadow because you have some over controlling parents who they want to dictate everything in a child's
I
life.
agree.
So
I
how does
agree.
people get out of the shadow and then reclaim their identity and, or in some cases, find their identity?
Wow, it's kind of hard for me to answer that outside of reclaiming my identity as Kendall solely versus a mom or a wife or someone's daughter, someone's friend, or someone that's in corporate America, right? I believe reclaiming your identity is being your most authentic self, and I know it takes a while for some people to get there. I've always prided myself on being authentic. What you see online is who I am. If you met me in the street, if we were having a conversation, you're going to get the same person. I've always known who I was as myself. However, my identity was solely wrapped up into motherhood. So when I say reclaiming your identity from that perspective, I need moms to really step back and really stop focusing on having so much value of their value tied to their children. That's why they don't know how to handle themselves when the children go off to college and they're now empty nesters. As it relates to people that are in relationships, I've been happily married for over 18 years now, but my husband is responsible for his own identity. I'm not trying to change him. He's not trying to change me. Although there's some navigation that you have to do because when two people come together, you have different personalities, you have different beliefs. Luckily, we align in a lot of ways, but I'm not responsible for trying to change him into who he is. And I think sometimes, and I can only speak from for women, women go into marriages and relationships with a facade. They try to pretend to be whoever they need to be for that person that they're trying to get married to. And then they
Mm.
change when they do get married. Me, I came in as Kendall. I'm going to die as Kendall. So my husband knew exactly who he was getting, what he was getting from the moment we got together dating up until we were married. And I would encourage women to not do that. Come in as your most authentic self because when you change, that's when you're going to start having issues in your marriage because now your husband is like, oh, you didn't have a problem with me going to the strip club back in the day. And now she's grown and she's like, well, I don't like that shit. I don't want you going to the strip club no more. And he's like, well, wait a minute now. When we started dating and in the beginning, you didn't have a problem. So I say, come in, how you going to leave?
Yeah, and and honestly, that can go for both people, because
Yeah.
I know there are some men that they will change their identity for this person to keep this person
Hmm.
happy, and then because I've gone through that too. I've been in situations where I felt like I had to change myself just to keep this woman happy. But then once me and this woman separated, I felt a
Yeah.
release. I felt like I'm back to
Yeah.
being me. I'm like, and I
Yeah.
told myself after that, I need to be with somebody that's gonna let me be me. I'm not
Absolutely.
changing, because you shouldn't have to change for nobody because we're
Absolutely.
only here we're only one person. We ain't here to make other people happy.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
And so, what do you want people to ultimately get from the book? Whoever picks up your book and reads it.
So, what I want people to get from that book is again, reclaiming who you are as an individual and not just somebody's mom. That's number one. Also, setting boundaries. And when I say set boundaries, I'm not talking about in the no contact world of setting boundaries because I believe people are building walls and not bridges. And that's a problem. So that's where all this
Mm.
estrangement comes from. And the parents that are dealing with adult children that have children my age, they're having a hard time with their children breaking off relationships with them. Some of them don't know why, some of them may know why, but they're having a hard time navigating and finding some peace within this estrangement. So, that my book is a guide and it gives them some tools on how you can deal with the estrangement by one, starting to focus on yourself, and then two, focus on the people that are still there that love you. I think a lot of times we get so focused on the trouble in our lives or what's causing a problem in our lives that we lose focus of the people that are still there that love us and care for us. So I want them to take that away. I want them to have some tools and a guide for them to go back and reference, like, oh, I'm feeling this way. Let me go back and reference this book and see how to navigate this feeling. How do I navigate, the feeling that this is not the relationship that I thought I would have. And how do I move forward while all of this is happening? And when I say set boundaries, I mean set boundaries when you're dealing with a child that is disrespectful, that doesn't honor you, that's abusive, that you no longer tolerate that. And that is okay.
That's real. That's real. That's of course. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Liquor Talk. The more you drink, the better we sound. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts or your platforms, wherever you listen to them right now. Shout out to everybody that's listening. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for everybody that's been tapping in with us. And thank you, Kendall, for showing up and being on the podcast, because this has been a really good conversation so far. So talk
Absolutely.
talk to
Thank
me
you.
about because I've seen this trending topic as well. I've seen how some parents have been like narcissistic towards their kids,
Oh,
like, and it's like, now we hold the kids accountable, but we gotta
do
we
we?
gotta be fair.
Do
We
we?
hold the kids. I don't. That's why we're talking about it, because I
Okay.
think everybody needs to be held accountable.
That is exactly what I feel. Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we call it, because there are some parents out there who will tell their kids something, but knowing damn well that's not the truth, or that's not how they were raised.
Well, that doesn't make them narcissistic. That makes them a liar. And I think we overuse that word. I think that the word narcissistic, oh, I call it the N word. It's the new N word. And it is overused. It has become a buzzword in the echo chamber of social media and pop site culture. Not every emotionally abusive, lying, emotionally inept parent is a narcissist. If you have been abused, your parent is an abuser. If your parents lie, they are a liar. If you have a parent or a mother that is emotionally bankrupt, she lacks empathy in the bank. She's bankrupt of emotions or being able to show you the love and affection. And it could be because she didn't experience that, right? Because I think a lot of times that's what happened. But that word is so fucking overused. It loses its power when you deal with people that are truly narcissistic. And when you look at the definition of being a narcissist or narcissistic personality disorder NPD, you have to also think, does that align with the parent that I'm talking about necessarily? Or did they just tell me something I didn't want to hear? Or did they just stop giving me money? Or whatever. Again, I know there are abusive parents. I know there are parents that lack emotional support and stability. I know all of that. That is not what I'm negating. What I am saying is that word needs to go in the fucking trash because it is overused.
Yeah, yeah. Come to think about it, you're right, because I think everybody overuses it, especially if somebody says something. Oh, they don't want to hear it. They're like, "Oh, you're controlling. You're narcissistic." I'm like, are they?
And that's
But
not it.
that
That's not
sometimes
it.
that's really not it.
You're controlling. Like if that's how you feel because you made a comment earlier, like what do you do when you have a controlling parent? They're controlling. That doesn't necessarily mean they're narcissists. And I think mislabeling harms the real conversations about the healing and the accountability that needs to take place because everybody is just a narcissist. And it's upsetting me and my homegirls that y'all keep using that word.
I mean, I agree. I definitely feel you, because sometimes people can be calling you a narcissist, and you're like, but was I
Like
right
what?
though? Like,
Right.
but was I right though? Come on now,
Right.
I'm telling the truth here, and sometimes people
Right.
don't want to be held accountable for their actions.
They don't, but being a truth teller still doesn't make you narcissistic. It just makes you triggered because you don't want to hear the truth. The truth
Mhm.
triggers the unhealed. The truth triggers all the people that don't want to hear what's really going on. So we just need to throw it in the trash. We need to retire diagnosing people, and we have no educational background to do so. And we also need to stop just letting this swirl around in the echo chambers of social media because I've been called a narcissist. Every parent in my comment has been called a narcissist. And I'm like, I refuse to believe that everybody is a narcissist, especially when it comes to parents. I believe they're abusive parents. I believe those parents have characteristics that I've mentioned prior, but I don't necessarily believe they fall into narcissism. And people get real, real upset when I challenge them on that shit.
Mm. Now, I can see why people will get mad at you for challenging because you're over here telling the truth. But, however, there are some parents that do try to tell their kid, oh, you need to be doing this, you need to do that, and not give a damn about what their interests are or whatever they want to do with their life.
I agree, but again, that's control, and that doesn't make them a narcissist. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with you trying to force your kid to play football and they want to sing in the choir. I've never done that with my kids. My son wanted to play soccer, I let him play soccer. He wanted to rap, I bought him the equipment and let him put a studio in my office. My oldest one, he sings all over the world. He has music on Apple Music. He wanted to sing, that's what he did. But he's a big guy, so people automatically like, oh, he's over 6 feet tall and he's 200. He should be playing football. That's not what he wants to do. So I never forced him to do that. So I think there's still a difference between being controlling and being narcissistic. They are not the same. And we need to be aware of that.
Now, what do you tell the young moms who, because sometimes we see it as well, they're trying to dictate to the kids what they need to be doing and not really
Stop.
trying to, thank you,
Stop.
thank you.
I'm going to say stop. I literally just said that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with you trying to force your child into something that they don't want to do because it benefits you in some way, whether it's how it looks, whether it's because you missed out on that opportunity. I don't agree with that. So stop.
Yes, you stops because what it creates is you're gonna create resentment from your child later
Absolutely.
on, and they'll
Absolutely.
be looking up when they get to have adult kids. Like, why does my son or my daughter resent me? Well, look at your actions.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Let's touch on that real quick. I think there could be some anger around that if you definitely try to force your child into something that they don't want to do. But resentment is a very strong word. Resentment is something that you hold for somebody forever. And I'm gonna always resort back to you gotta heal from that. So your parent made you play football, you didn't want to play football. No, they shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have controlled whatever you chose to do, but resentment, I feel like that's a little bit strong for you to carry that from childhood to adulthood and be like, I'm not talking to you anymore because you made me play fucking football.
Yeah, yeah, that is a little strong, and it's like that is something. But you gotta, for me to like stop talking to you, it gotta be something more recent than that. So
Absolutely.
it has to be something like within a year or two, not know something that's done in my childhood
You'd be
because.
surprised. You'd be surprised what I hear.
Oh, really? Well, what do you
Oh
hear?
God. Let's see. A mother reached out to me in DM from Mexico. She said that her son, who they put through private school, college, and law school, he's now 40. His father worked 60 hours a week, and he told them that they have dirty Mexican jobs.
Well, what are they doing?
His daddy was a roofer who worked 60 hours a week, and his mother was a housekeeper. And they put him through college, private school, and law school. And now he says they had dirty Mexican jobs. And I was like, the audacity.
Yeah, that sounds like some goddamn audacity. That sounds like some good paying jobs. If you have to put your son through private school and law school, man, that's a
Law
good paying
school and
job.
college. I
Law
mean,
school and
I
college.
mean, yep. And that's what he said. He's 40 years old. So that's just one thing, but you'd be surprised.
Do you ever tell those people that they need to go see a fucking therapist?
I do. And I tell them quite frankly, I'm not a therapist, nor do I want to be a therapist. I am just someone who has experienced pretty much everything in life that I can speak to. Um, and but no, I didn't tell her to go see a therapist. What did the mother go need to go see a therapist for? His ass needs to go see a therapist. And how dare you? Your parents have worked hard all of their lives to make sure you have the finer things in life. They probably don't even have an education to that degree. They were just some hardworking people, and you have the audacity to tell your parents they had dirty Mexican jobs?
Man, he is
Are you
ungrateful.
fucking kidding me?
He
He's an
is
asshole.
Yes, he is fucking ungrateful. Let me have some parents that put me through private
Okay.
school, law school. I'm gonna retire their asses. Like, look,
That part.
y'all good. We good over here. Y'all don't have to work them jobs. Work them if you want to because you want to have some play
That
money
part.
or whatever.
Exactly.
But you know,
Yeah.
no. Because if you do that for me, I'm gonna have to retire you. Because god damn.
Absolutely. That's exactly what he should have done. But he was being, and the mother was still going to clean his home 3 times a week and help him with his autistic child while his wife sat down and did absolutely nothing.
His
So
at what
yeah,
point do you think his mother
but
just has a big heart, or does she
I
not
told her
just
she was
know?
an enabler. I told her she was an enabler, that you've done your part. And I would no longer allow him to, number one, speak to me like that. Number two, you're enabling him by still going over there, waiting on him hand and foot, taking care of his children, cleaning his home. He has a wife. Let her do it. Because now they're looking
Damn.
at you like the help. They're not even looking at you like you're a parent. They're looking at you like you are the help. So yeah, I had to give her some tough love.
Yeah, as you should, because it's like I'm just hearing this. I'm like, because even as a adult child would never put my parents through that, and it's like,
Mm-mm,
no, no, hell no, because it's like I got
mm-mm.
my own life now. If it's something that I may need their advice on, I might call them, but no, I'm not
Yeah,
about to be doing
yeah.
that. And at some point, the mom got to live for themselves, and
And
that's
that's what
that's
I
why
encourage.
that's why I really feel like with parents with adult kids, at some point you gotta
Hmm.
live for yourself and let your child figure it out on their own.
And that's where reclaiming your identity comes in. Stuff like that. It's time for you to live for yourself. He's 40. He's not 18. He's not 20. He's 40.
Damn, he about old enough to have his own kid that he putting through college.
Right. He does have a kid according to the mom, but here nor
That
there.
that is definitely crazy. So now getting to motherhood, what are some myths that us men may not understand about motherhood? Because I've heard it from different women. Oh, you men just don't get it, or this just don't get that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah, I
sometimes
don't think
y'all
we
don't
do.
give us the chance to understand it.
And that's true too, but I think there's a different connection between a mother and a child and a father and a child. There is something that is tied to you chemically when you are pregnant and you have birth, you give birth and you have children, right? So that's why it's very hard for us to disconnect ourselves from our children. That's why they can disrespect you and treat you like trash, and you'll still be there for them because there is this mental and physical connection that nobody can explain, and men don't have that. I think something also is that you don't realize how overstimulated moms are all the time. I always say that a child, they may need their father, but they want their mother at all times. And there's a difference between being needed and being wanted. Um, or vice versa. But I think that's a misconception. I think there's also a misconception that how you guys can really disconnect. Like you can go to work, you can come home, you can disconnect from everything. Where in a mom, it's this silent servitude that we are constantly doing for the entire family, and definitely a child, especially if they're a younger age, and hell, even if they are older, it is a constant job, like I said, that you never get any days off. And it is not for the weak.
Yeah, it is definitely not for a week. Now, what do you say about the fathers who've had to pick up that role? Because there are some moms out there who just go ghost, and the
Mm-hmm.
dads have had to pick up the slack and had to
Yeah.
do everything.
Well, it's rare, but I know it is something that's happening. I do hear from dads as well, that are talking about that. I commend them, and I shouldn't have to commend them because parenthood is equal. It's a 50-50 thing. It shouldn't be more on one person or more on the other. I feel like it should be 50-50. We both procreated. We both had this child together. So I don't really feel like they should get a hand clap as it relates to being a father if a mom has vacated. But I do feel like they should be recognized as well, just as much as a mom is.
Agreed, agreed. But however, you do have those moms that will hold out, that will keep the father out the child's life. And
And
sometimes
I
it's
don't
a
like them.
father that's actually stepping up to the plate, not a deadbeat bum. You have some
Oh
fathers
yeah,
who are out there grinding, actually trying to get it, who are actually
I
trying to
agree.
take care of their child. But you have these
Yeah.
moms, they're like, oh, give me money, then you can see the child.
And I can't stand them. I can't stand women like that. I don't advocate for women like that. I don't condone women like that. My husband is that good dude who's tried to be in his children's lives, where I'm on the opposite spectrum. I'm the type who never asked my kids' dads for anything. Even when my husband and my ex-husband and I got a divorce, I think he paid me child support one time. My son's 29 years old. And then he said, I'm about to lose my job. Can you take the child support off? And I did, and I never put it back on. My older son's father, same thing. I don't chase. You know, you have a child just like I have a child. I'm not going to chase you to be in his life. But back to your point, I don't agree with women who try to control the dynamic of a father and a child's relationship at all. I don't respect women like that. I don't agree with women like that. And those are not the women that I advocate for. If you have a father that is trying to be in your child's life, you should not try to stay in the way of that. And if he has moved on, you should not try to control or manipulate him with your child either, because that is parental alienation and it's actually abuse.
Hmm. Yes, it is. That is definitely abuse right there, especially if you have parental alienation. And then also,
Mm-hmm.
what I hate is some parents they will alienate the biological father, and then they
Mm-hmm.
will force whatever new man they will on that child. And I'm like, this
Mm-hmm.
new motherfucker ain't good. The actual
Yeah, I don't
father who
agree.
knows the child is better than
Mm-hmm.
whoever you're sleeping with.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't align myself with women like that, and I will never advocate for them or be in the corner of women who try to control the narrative between a father and a child when a father is really trying their best to be in that child's life.
That's amazing. I'm glad you said it because you'll have some people get on the platforms and act like, oh, women are just this. They are just oblivious to the other side, you know.
I'm a grown ass woman. I'm 52 years old. I don't I'm going to tell the truth.
Yeah, I'm glad you do because there are some women in their 50s that don't tell the truth. I'm like, ma'am,
Yeah, that's
you done
true.
lived
That's
your
true.
life, ma'am. It's
That is
okay
true.
to tell the truth. It's like, but I realize age is only a number because
That is
maturity
true.
is, you
That
know.
is true. That is absolutely true. But yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
I'm glad you don't agree with that, and I'm glad we got somebody out there that is, you know, that is advocating for, you know.
I hope you have more than just somebody. I mean, the truth is the truth. You know what I'm saying? And I always err on the side of truth, no matter what it looks like.
Yes, you always have to err on the side of truth. Now,
Hmm.
what are some things? Well, speaking of parents, because I know you have you hear from moms and stuff. What are some things that millennials you see from millennials that you're like, what the hell are you doing with your child? That you see that you're like, what the hell is you doing?
Well, first of all, millennials think they're better parents than every parent that comes before them. So I have a problem with that. And we can all learn from one another. I believe they feel like they have parenting narrowed down because they're best friends with their kids, or they're gentle parenting, or they're letting them express their emotions, which I think is great. Everybody should be able to express their emotions. But the issue is what they're doing is they're creating a generation that thinks they're on the same level of every adult, because they no longer see you at the patriarchy or the hierarchy of parenting. They see you as an equal, and therefore they're going to treat you like an equal, and then they're going to treat every other adult like an equal. And some of us ain't going for that shit. So I think that's a major problem. I think they can be a little in fairy tale world also. They feel like they're breaking these generational trauma by going no contact or setting boundaries or healing, when all they're doing is they're creating another generation to follow that same pattern. And I don't even think they realize that, because they seem to think that they have it all figured out. And none of us do.
Yeah, I definitely feel like as I've seen it too from some millennials. I'm like, y'all don't have it all figured out. You know, we ain't
They think
perfect
they
around
do.
here.
They think
And
they do.
I think sometimes that maybe it's because they have some unhealed traumas from
Mm-hmm.
they got from their parents, and they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I went through this with my mom or my dad, and I'm definitely
Mm-hmm.
not gonna be like this. So I guess that's maybe why they feel like, oh, we're the better parent because I ain't put my child through this, I ain't put my child through that. But there is some shit you're gonna put your child through, you know.
Absolutely. Everybody's going to put their child through something. Even, every generation tries to do things better than the generation before them. I thought I was doing good by not beating my kids the way I got beat. I got beat with extension cords, belts, hangers, slapped in the mouth, slapped in the face, embarrassed in front of my peers, stuff like that. Like that's the type of that was the way that I was chastised growing up, which would now people would be like, oh shit, that was fucking abuse. I look at it now kind of like it was overboard and wasn't necessary because I wasn't a bad kid and I didn't deserve to get that type of chastisement. So what we did in Generation X, coming from boomer parents, we decided we're not gonna beat our kids. We're not gonna beat our kids. We tried to stay in the middle. We're not gonna beat our kids because we didn't really have a voice. We're gonna let our kids be able to talk. So we started the express yourself type of things where we weren't able to do so. And I feel like we did a disservice by not having some balance when it came to how we raised our millennial children. And then again, now our millennial children, they're taking trauma, and I'm not negating anyone's trauma, but some of them thinks trauma is you telling them to fucking clean up behind themselves. Some of them think it's trauma because you're like, no, you came home 3 times already when you lost your apartment, and I have taught you financial responsibility. And now they feel like that's abuse and that's trauma. So they feel like they're being abused by some of the simplest things. And again, I know it's not always the case, and there are abusive situations, but it's totally different what they see as trauma and abuse in comparison to the generations that preceded us, number one. And again, some of the things that they feel like is trauma and abuse, it really isn't. It's just your parent was trying to be a parent. You didn't like the way it was said. You didn't like what was said. You got cut off financially. So all of that becomes this trauma that you're hearing repeatedly all the time. And I don't necessarily agree that everything that has happened in your life has been trauma.
You know, I totally feel you on that because I really feel like it's a whole new account. But how is that trauma? Like trauma is
That part.
them being abusive or them always belittling you or always being mentally or spiritually
Absolutely.
abusive. No, no, not
Hmm.
telling you to clean your shit up and clean up after
Yeah.
yourself. That is not
Yeah.
abusive.
I hear that. I definitely hear that from parents to say, "Oh yeah, I told my kid to come home at a certain time. They didn't come home, so I locked them out the door. Oh, that was traumatic. That was trauma. You put me out. You abandoned me." So yeah, again, I think there's a lesson to be learned from all the generations, and I don't think one generation is better than the other. And that's kind of what I see with millennials. I think they think that their parenting and the way that they do things are so much better than the generations that preceded them, and I don't agree with that 100%. I believe that some things are, but not
Yeah.
everything that they do.
Yeah, it's like I do believe there are some things we do better, but not everything because there's some millennials they let the technology raise the kids, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
that is not what's up.
Mm-mm.
You need to teach kids
Exactly.
how to use technology, but you cannot let them just sit on the tablet all fucking
Hmm.
day. No,
Yeah.
tell their asses to do something, you know?
Exactly, exactly. When my grandson is here, he wants to hold that. You get a certain amount of time to have that tablet in your hand, and then you put it down, and then we have to interact and communicate because they're also teaching their children how not to be able to communicate. That's why they walk around, they don't speak, they got hoodies on their head, they don't know how to communicate with verbal communication. And then now you want to say they got ADHD and they're autistic. No, they just don't fucking know how to communicate because you didn't have a computer in their goddamn hands most of their life.
Yeah, it's like you gotta teach them how to do that, and also you gotta teach them how to be productive when they have those tablets in their hands or something like that.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times they just watching TikTok or playing
Go to
games.
YouTube.
Yeah, or
Mhm.
YouTube. Teach them how to be productive with that tablet because
Mhm.
there's programs, there's learning programs they could be doing and stuff.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and what's some other issues you see with millennial parents? Because I feel like it's a lot of them. The way you sound.
I don't even want to say it's just issues. I just think that, the whole gentle parenting thing and, you're letting your child express themselves, which is, like I said, it's not a bad thing, but there has to be this balance because what I'm noticing is, again, kids are seeing their parents and every other adult as equal. And that shit is not reality. You know what I'm saying? There's this constant talk of I'm breaking cycles, but are you though? Are
No.
you though? Are you are you breaking cycles or are you creating more cycles? Because your kid is going to grow up at some point. And I think people forget that as well. They forget that their child is going to grow up. And then sometimes you're going to face the very same things that you judged your parent on. And then you're going to be like, well, I did it. I thought I did things the right way. I probably was imperfect. I did the best that I can. The same things that Gen X and Boomer parents are saying, but millennials don't want to hear that.
Mm.
They're
So,
building walls and not bridges.
oh, I feel you. So I guess your advice be to the millennials is quit building walls and quit burning bridges, right?
Absolutely. Quit building walls, quit burning bridges. Stop making people so disposable because things get tough for you or you don't like something how it feels or how it was said or how you feel because it comes across almost like a victim mentality to a certain degree. And again, I feel like millennials and Gen Zs, they want the world to change and revolve around them, but they're not willing to change themselves.
Yes, true change comes within yourself, and sometimes you gotta change within yourself, and then just let the rest fall. You can't worry about everybody else, and also
Agree.
you just gotta, like I say, gotta change within yourself, and also don't be afraid to listen to the other generations, because
Absolutely.
because I do feel like it's a time and place for everything. I do feel like
Yeah.
there's a time and place for gentle parenting, and then there's some shit that you gotta hold their asses accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think everybody needs to listen. And I think that's what's missing. That's the missing piece.
Yeah, because I definitely feel like that's the missing piece. Because I feel like the millennials don't want to listen to the Gen Zs, to Gen Xs, and then of course nobody wants to listen to how they got parented. And I mean, if we all just sat down and listened and listen to comprehend and not listen to respond and try to
That part.
listen to attack, maybe we could
That
get
part.
somewhere.
That part. And then that's what I see. That's how I know when I've hit a nerve and I've triggered somebody because you can see it all in the comments. You can see it
Mm,
all in the comments on my post. And I'm like, hey, engagement is engagement, so a win is a win, whether you like it or not. And I'm always gonna call you to the carpet. But I don't have a problem listening either. But when I know people are triggered, is because they don't come in to have conversations, they automatically come in to attack. And I'm like, that lets me know that you were triggered versus you hearing to listen or understand. You came in to just speak what you had to say. And that's why I said before that I think a lot of people even go to therapy because or they want to be heard, they don't want to be healed.
mm. And honestly, and I know this is a little off topic, but I feel like that's why a lot of relationships do be failing, because sometimes you get people that they just want to be heard. They don't want to come together and figure out the problem. They don't
They
want to
want
come
to be
together.
heard.
They just want to be heard. Oh, I just
That's
want to
it.
get my piece off, and I don't care. And I don't. You say I care about what you think, but you really don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing because if you did care, you are willing to if you're going to call somebody out on the carpet and tell them what they need to be accountable for. When they turn around and say, "Okay, well this is how you made me feel and I feel like you need to be accountable for this." So that's why I always challenge all the adult millennials and I know the generations by the way that they speak and by the way that they come in the comments so upset. I already know they're Gen X or they're Gen Z. Gen Zs come in hella disrespectful. Millennials come in and it's like everybody's a narcissist. Everybody triggers me all my trauma. I was abused. And then a lot of this, what is unnerving to me is so much of this venom is directed towards mothers, but there's rarely any reference to dad. And a lot of times I'm like, you're mad at your mama because your daddy left you, but he also
Oh,
left her.
yeah. Honestly, I could definitely see that, and I could definitely see that as well, because I'm a product of a dad that left as well. But I
So
got
am
to
I.
I got to a point where I had to forgive him, but and my mom,
Yeah,
and it's partially because my mom knows why, and also it's because look at what I did without you, and then it's like, and
exactly.
then I'll go back and I even drive through the city. I'm looking at you now, and I'm like, bruh, I'm
Yeah,
doing way better than you, and also he will be. Sometimes last time I talked to him, he was always talking about some shit that happened in 2008. At the time, it was 2020. I'm like, sir,
he's
move the fuck
stuck.
on.
Yeah, he's stuck. He's stuck. I'm a product of abandonment also. My dad fell prey to the drug addiction era that came into the black community and he got addicted to crack cocaine for most of my life. My father died in prison and I buried him and we have been estranged for 15, 16 years. But that was
Wow.
my closure. That was my closure because I had grace. And I also started to try to unravel who he was as an individual and not hold him hostage to just being my parent.
Yeah. Oh, that's real. So, how do now? We'll ask you this: how do millennials give grace to their parents? Like, because
They
there's
don't.
now, how should they? Because it's like, because sometimes you got to
They should
understand
give
that.
them the same fucking grace that they expect.
That's true. And it's like, and I definitely agree with that because sometimes living life will make you realize, yeah, this world
Absolutely.
is
It will
definitely
humble
tough.
you. It will humble you. And not only that, a lot of times I'll just say, keep living, keep living. You know, when you feel like you're a better parent, when you feel like you're parenting better, when you feel like you're on this high horse, which sometimes I feel like some millennials, and let me say some again, because people tend to not hear when I say that. Um, Life has a funny way of humbling you. It has a funny way of humbling you. So the grace that I think they should give to their parents is the same grace that they expect from everybody around them.
Yes, that's real. And ladies and gentlemen, and when you get humbled, please take a shot of liquor and get your ass up and keep going, ladies and gentlemen. Because
Yeah.
remember, and because that's what you got to do in life, because that's the best way. Because life is gonna continue to humble you no matter what level you're at, and it's just best to take a shot of something and keep going. And if you don't drink, hey, it is what it is. Do whatever you gotta do to get over it and keep going, and not make people pay for it. Don't punish people.
Absolutely.
Now, what is some advice you give to people without kids? Because the older I get, I realize that there are a lot of people. There are some people in their 40s that ain't got kids. There are
Hmm.
people up there. I'm like, wow, how the hell you hit 40 and 50 with no kids? I'm like, wow. So
Smart.
they are smart, So what is some what's some because people with kids they always want to talk so much shit to the people without kids, like, oh, you don't know what this is like, you ain't ready for this, and I'm like,
You're not.
probably not. So, what's some advice you give to people without kids?
First of all, I would say, listen, if you don't want to have kids, don't let anybody convince you to have kids. Don't feel any kind of way about it. Do not allow anyone, not society, not family, not friends, anybody to make you feel a certain way if you decide that you do not want to be a parent. Because when that baby shower is over, when you got that cute little bundle of joy from the hospital and it's fresh and it's new and that new car smell wears off, it's reality. And you got to be prepared for it. You got to be prepared for it financially, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, because it is going to test you in every sense of the word. Because parenting is not for the weak, like I said earlier. Stop romanticizing parenting. It's not all the onesies and the cute little cuddles, and that wears out. It is war. Some days when you are a parent, especially as your kid continues to grow, you need to be healed and whole yourself as much as possible, because I know that we're always constantly on some form of a healing journey, but you need to be somewhat healed from whatever trauma you feel like you experience before you become a parent, because you don't want that to bleed over into your child. um there are no days off. I think I repeated that several times, so there won't be any clocking out. There will be no I'm taking vacation. There will be no I'm sick, therefore you have to tend to yourself. It is a constant job, 24 hours a day in most cases. And moms, especially, do not lose your identity. I'm not negating dads, I'm not taking anything away, but I can only speak from a woman's perspective. Do not lose your identity. When your kids grow up and pull away, you're going to need your own life. Hence why I say do not wrap up your entire existence around a child. Also, make sure that if you're in a relationship with someone, especially marriage, you are putting your spouse first. And I know a lot of moms won't agree with that, but my husband comes first above all. And that's just how it is. My husband, he's a good man. If he was trash, it would be a different situation. But if you are married, remember your spouse comes first, and make sure you take time out for one another, and definitely have you some support in a village to help out if you can.
Yes, I would definitely say you need to have that village and have that support around because I know I
Yeah.
talked about this on a podcast a few weeks ago with the fellas. There was a young lady who simply asked the baby daddy to, hey, can you take care of the kids this weekend because I'm not there mentally. And then he didn't respond. And then a few days later, she get the word that she killed herself and then killed the kids. I'm like, ma'am,
Damn.
I'm just like, that is so unfortunate. I'm like, if the dad ain't stepping up, then dad ain't shit. We get that, but where is
He
everybody
ain't.
else? Where's the aunts, the uncles, the grandmamas? Somebody, goddamn.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the village, like what some of us may have experienced growing up having that village. It doesn't really exist anymore. And that's the sad part. And that's why a lot of women don't have the support that they need. And also, again, the cut off community. Like you cut people off that would be your village. And then when you need somebody, those people are not there anymore. So you need to be cognizant of that when you're on this phase of, I'm gonna ghost people, or I'm gonna not, they're disposable with no valid reason.
Yeah. Dispose of people who do some shit that you just can't come back from. If you feel like
Exactly.
it's something that you can come back from with communication and with actions changing, then fucking albeit come back from it because it's tough out here in this world.
It's tough.
And it's
It's
only gonna
hard
get
in these
tougher.
streets. Yeah, outside, real scary right now.
Yes, outside is real scary right now. It's crazy, all this shit we hearing about in the news and stuff. So definitely it's important. And what is one final thing you want to say to adult kids who maybe have some bitterness towards their parents?
I think you need to have a conversation. You need to learn conflict resolution, and you need to be mature enough to have a conversation, even if it doesn't go your way. You may not walk away from that conversation feeling like you got any answers, or you got the accountability that you're always trying to hold your parents' feet to the fire. And then also, when you come in there, you need to be able to be accountable too, because what if your mom or dad turns around and be like, you know what, you caused me some hell growing up. You stole from me. You treated me
Mm.
like this. This is how you made me feel. You broke my heart. You disappointed me. So when you're coming to anyone, especially your parent, and you having these conversations, be ready to have a two-way conversation and not just a one-way conversation. Because like I said, you being heard is not a solution. And then you also cannot heal and move forward contingent upon a parent telling you what you think you want to hear.
Hmm. Because it's like, and also I definitely agree. Because sometimes you may think you want that, but then it's not. Then you get it. It's not satisfying. It's like no. I'm at a point now. Fucking tell me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. It is what it is because it's always the shit you don't want to hear. That's the shit that helps you grow.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think some parents think they're protecting you when they don't tell you everything, and that is the intent, right? You don't need to tell your child everything that you experience because one, is the past, nothing you can do about it, and two, we feel like we're shielding our children a lot of times, so it could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I definitely agree, but sometimes it's like the parents could be shielding them from one thing, but then something else totally different comes and messes everything up. So,
Yeah, I agree, totally agree.
but that is definitely life for you. So, what is the plan for the podcast for the rest of the year?
The plan for the podcast, I have an episode coming up on have Black moms ruin their sons. I don't think it's just a Black mom thing, but I think it's
Mhm.
a mom thing. It could be Black, white, it does universal. But I'm gonna talk about that with a guest, and we're gonna talk about why have Black moms ruin their sons.
I
That's gonna be
will
my next episode.
I will say this. To that, I will say black moms need to be careful of the people and the spirits they bring around their sons
I say
because
that.
that is what's going to trigger your sons to not want to deal with you when they get older. Because
Yeah,
I admit I'm guilty of that. It's like because I'm
yeah,
like, Mom, you brought around some very fucked up people that made me not want to deal with you when I got to be in
yeah,
college, and now I'm getting my life is just whooping ass, and there's some things I thought I should have been prepared for that I wasn't.
yeah,
It's because you
yeah,
brought these jackasses in my life, and then it's like, and then also that's where I also can hold my mom accountable for anybody I bring on my
yeah,
podcast because I love my mom,
yeah.
but she has been critical of people I brought on the podcast, and I haven't
Mhm.
played that trump card of look at the people you brought in my life. So that's the one thing I would say about
Mm,
that is be
okay.
wary of the people you bring around your child.
I agree. I agree. And that's why, to end, that's why when I got my divorce, I did not bring my now husband around until I knew we were serious. I knew he was a good-hearted guy. I knew he was a good guy. And we have been together for over 20 years and married for 18 years. So I was very selective about that and definitely not being involved with a bunch of different people and bringing them around my sons. So this has been the man that I've been with since I got a divorce. And this is who the man I'm going to spend the rest of my life with.
As you should, because unfortunately, a lot of single moms do that. They
I
so
know.
eager and quick to
Yeah,
introduce their
I don't agree
kid.
with that either. I don't agree with that either. You should never introduce your child to a guy unless y'all have been dating for a long period of time and you know without a shadow of a doubt that this person is a good person and this person is going to be in you and your child's life because that can be devastating and abandonment over and over and over again. So I don't agree with women that do that either.
Yeah, I don't definitely agree with that. It's like you got to know when the right time is, because
Hmm.
I'll admit, after my mom's first husband, I didn't want to meet nobody she was dealing with. Now the second
Yeah.
husband she's getting remarried to, this guy, he was a breath of fresh air. I'm like, Mom, you hit a home run with him. It sucks. You met him when I was in my 20s, because you should have. This is who you should have married first. But to each
Right.
his own.
Hey.
And it's like, hey, people come at the right time and they come when they should
Yeah,
come. So. That's
absolutely.
how you definitely look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But lastly, why should people tap in with Mom's True Tea podcast?
Yeah, you should tap into Mom's True Tea podcast if you are a mother, or if you're not a mother. You may want to hear one side of the truth about motherhood, but be ready to hear the unfiltered truth, 100% authentic and unfiltered, because I don't sugarcoat shit when it comes to parenting. And I'm fine with triggering people because again, the truth triggers the unhealed, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's what you can expect. More stories, more podcast episodes around that, and more around my book as well.
Yes, yes, Kendall, I want to thank you for blessing the Liquor Talk with your presence. Ladies
Thanks
and
for
gentlemen,
having me.
go check out her book. And listen, Kendall, and anytime you need a male perspective, remember, I'm in Florida, but I'm just a DM away. So if you ever want to get me on,
For
we can make it
sure.
happen. Just let me know when. So thank you
For
again for
sure.
blessing me with your presence
Thanks for
today.
having me.
Thank you
Thank
to
you.
listeners for pouring up and taking a shot with this episode of Liquor Talk. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Thank you to everybody who tapped in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And if you want to be a guest, hit us up and tell us what you think about the episode. Just check us out. Get in touch with us. Until the next episode, remember to keep living and keep pouring up. Peace.